The autumn rain pattered against the tall windows of Windsor Castle as Catherine sat quietly in the library, her hands folded in her lap. She had been summoned by the Queen's private secretary, but no one would tell her why. The massive oak doors creaked open, and Sir Edward Hartwell, the family's longtime legal advisor, entered with a leather briefcase that looked as old as the castle itself. Catherine noticed how nervous he appeared. His usually steady hands trembled slightly as he sat. The briefcase on the mahogany table between them. Behind him walked Queen Elizabeth's personal assistant, Mrs. Morrison, who had served the royal family for over 30 years. Her face was pale, and she avoided making eye contact with Catherine. "Your Royal Highness," Sir Edward began, his voice barely above a whisper, "what I'm about to share with you must remain completely confidential." Prince Philip, before his passing, left specific instructions that this information should only be revealed after a certain period had passed. Catherine felt her heart begin to race. Prince Philip had always been kind to her, treating her more like a granddaughter than just William's wife. She remembered their last conversation at Sandringham, where he had pulled her aside and spoke about duty, sacrifice, and the true meaning of serving the crown. At the time, she thought it was just grandfatherly advice. Sir Edward opened the briefcase. With shaking fingers, inside lay several documents, all bearing official seals and signatures. The top document was marked with Prince Philip's personal seal, and Catherine could see her name written in his distinctive handwriting across the envelope. Prince Philip was very specific about timing, Sir Edward continued. He wanted to ensure that the monarchy would be stable and that certain transitions would occur naturally before this information came to light. He paused, looking directly at Catherine. "Your Royal Highness, Prince Philip has named you as his primary beneficiary. In matters concerning the future direction of the royal family," Catherine's eyes widened in disbelief. "I don't understand, Sir Edward. What does this mean exactly?" Mrs. Morrison stepped forward, her voice barely audible. "Ma'am, Prince Philip believed that you represented the future of the monarchy. He saw in you the qualities that the royal family would need to survive and thrive in the modern world. He was very specific about his wishes regarding Queen Camilla's role going forward." The room fell silent except for the continued patter of rain against the windows. Catherine felt as if the weight of the entire monarchy was suddenly pressing down on her shoulders. She thought about William, about their children, and about the life they had built together. Everything was about to change in ways she could never have imagined. Sir Edward carefully removed the sealed envelope with her name on it. "Prince Philip wrote this letter personally for you, Your Royal Highness. He wanted you to understand his reasoning and his hopes for the future of the crown." As Catherine took the envelope in her hands, she noticed it was heavier than expected. Inside, she could feel what seemed to be multiple documents and something small and metallic. Her mind raced with questions about what Prince Philip could have possibly left for her and why he had chosen her over the current Queen Consort. The lawyer cleared his throat nervously. "Ma'am, there's something else you should know before you read that letter." Prince Philip also left specific instructions about how this information should be handled. He was very concerned about the reaction it might cause within the family and the public. Catherine looked up from the envelope, her green eyes filled with concern. "What kind of reaction are we talking about, Sir Edward?" "Well, Your Royal Highness, let's just say that not everyone in the family is going to be pleased with Prince Philip's decisions, particularly Queen Camilla. She has no idea about any of this, and Prince Philip specifically requested that she be informed only after you had been fully briefed on your new responsibilities." The gravity of the situation began to sink in for Catherine. She realized that Prince Philip hadn't just left her an inheritance. He had entrusted her with the future of the British monarchy. Whatever was in that letter would change not only her life, but potentially the entire royal family structure. Mrs. Morrison moved closer to Catherine's chair. "Ma'am, if I may say so, Prince Philip spoke about you often in his final months. He admired your strength, your dedication to duty, and your ability to connect with people from all walks of life. He believed that you possessed the qualities necessary to guide the monarchy through the challenges ahead." Catherine felt tears beginning to form in her eyes as she thought about the Duke of Edinburgh's faith in her. She had always respected him greatly. She never imagined that he saw her as anything more than William's supportive wife. "Sir." Edward glanced at his watch, and then at Mrs. Morrison. Your Royal Highness, we should mention that time is of the essence. Prince Philip's instructions were very clear about when certain actions needed to be taken. Once you read that letter and understand your new position, there are decisions that will need to be made quite quickly. The room seemed to grow colder as Catherine held the envelope closer to her chest. Would change everything she thought she knew about her role in the royal family. The rain outside grew heavier, creating an almost ominous soundtrack to this life-changing moment. Catherine's hands trembled as she carefully opened the envelope. The paper was thick and expensive, the kind used only for the most important royal documents. As she unfolded the letter, she could see Prince Philip's handwriting. Still strong and determined, despite his advanced age when he wrote it. My dear Catherine, the letter began, if you are reading this, then the time has come for you to understand the true depth of my faith in you and your future role in this family. Catherine paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. Sir. Edward and Mrs. Morrison waited respectfully as she read silently, their faces showing the tension they felt about the contents of the letter. I have watched you carefully over the years, Prince Philip had written, and I have seen qualities in you that remind me of Elizabeth in her younger days, but with a modern understanding that our family desperately needs. Ow. You have proven yourself to be dignified under pressure, compassionate toward others, and most importantly, you understand that being royal is about service, not privilege. Catherine looked up at Sir Edward. This is incredible, but I still don't understand what this means practically. What exactly has Prince Philip left for me? Sir Edward opened another folder from his briefcase. Your Royal Highness, Prince Philip has left you several significant assets. But more importantly, he has given you certain powers within the family. Structure that were previously unknown to most members of the royal household. He pulled out a document with multiple official seals. This document grants you the authority to make decisions regarding the line of succession in consultation with King Charles, but with the power to override certain traditional protocols if you deem it necessary for the good of the monarchy. Catherine felt dizzy. Are you saying that Prince Philip has given me the power to influence who becomes the next monarch? Not exactly, ma'am, but close to it. He has given you significant influence over how the monarchy operates and evolves. He believed that the royal family needed someone with your perspective and judgment to help navigate the modern world. Mrs. Morrison stepped forward with another document. There's more, Your Royal Highness. Prince Philip has also left you control over several important royal estates and a substantial portion of his personal wealth, but most significantly, he has given you the authority to restructure certain ceremonial roles within the family. Catherine's mind immediately went to Camilla. What does this mean for Queen Camilla's position? The room fell silent for a moment. Before Sir Edward answered carefully, Prince Philip was very specific about this, ma'am. He felt that while Queen Camilla has been a good companion to King Charles, she lacks the qualities necessary to be a true leader for the modern royal family. He believed that you should gradually take on many of the traditional queen consort duties. Catherine stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. Outside the gardens of Windsor Castle, stretched out in the gray afternoon light, she thought about all the times Camilla had been kind to her, all the family gatherings where they had worked together. The idea of taking over her role felt overwhelming and somehow wrong. This seems impossible, Catherine said, turning back. To face the lawyer and assistant? How can Prince Philip simply decide to change the established order? And what gives me the right to accept such a massive responsibility? Sir Edward exchanged a glance with Mrs. Morrison before answering. Your Royal Highness, Prince Philip spent months consulting with constitutional lawyers and historical precedents. What he has done is completely legal, though it is certainly unprecedented in modern times. He used his position as the longest-serving consort in British history to establish these provisions. Catherine returned to her chair, feeling the weight of generations of royal tradition pressing down on her. She continued reading the letter, and her eyes widened as she came to the next section. I know this will be difficult for you to accept, Prince Philip had written, but I have watched Camilla carefully as well. While she has been loyal to Charles, she lacks the vision and strength that the monarchy will need in the coming decades. The public respects you in a way they have never quite respected her. You represent hope and renewal, while she represents the past and its complications. The letter continued with specific instructions about how Catherine should handle the transition of responsibilities. Prince Philip had thought of everything, from how to approach King Charles about the changes to how to manage public perception. Of the shift in roles, there is something else you must know. Prince Philip had written near the end of the letter. I have left you a personal item that belonged to my mother, Princess Alice of Battenberg. She was a woman of extraordinary strength and character, and I believe you share many of her qualities. This item will serve as a symbol of the authority I am passing to you. Catherine reached into the envelope and pulled out a small velvet pouch. Inside was an ornate ring with a stunning sapphire surrounded by diamonds. She had never seen it before, but she could feel its significance immediately. Mrs. Morrison gasped softly. I haven't seen that ring in decades, ma'am. Prince Philip kept it in his private safe. It was his most treasured possession from his mother. Edward nodded solemnly. Your Royal Highness, that ring represents more than just jewelry. In Prince Philip's mind, it represents the passing of true royal authority to you. By accepting it, you are accepting all the responsibilities that come with his trust in you. Catherine held the ring up to the light, watching it sparkle despite the gloomy afternoon. She realized that Prince Philip hadn't just left her material possessions, he had entrusted her with the very soul of the monarchy's future. The question now was whether she had the courage to accept such an enormous responsibility. Catherine slipped the ring onto her right hand, and it fit perfectly. The moment she did so, she felt a strange sense of connection to Prince Philip and to generations of royals who had come before her. Sir Edward watched her carefully, noting the subtle change in her demeanor as she accepted the symbolic weight of what she had inherited. There's one more thing, Your Royal Highness, Sir Edward said, pulling out a final document from the briefcase. Prince Philip has arranged for you to meet with several key figures who have been aware of his plans. They have been waiting for this moment for over 2 years. Catherine looked confused. Who else knows about this? I thought you said it was completely confidential, Mrs. Morrison answered. Prince Philip was very strategic, ma'am. He involved only the most trusted individuals who would be essential in helping you transition into your new role. The Archbishop of Canterbury knows, as do several senior members of Parliament and a few carefully selected palace staff members. The door to the library opened, and Catherine was surprised to see Margaret Thornbury, the Queen's former private secretary who had retired the previous year. Margaret had always been one of Catherine's favorite people in the palace, known for her wisdom and discretion. Catherine, my dear, Margaret said with a warm smile. I apologize for the secrecy, but Philip made us all promise to wait until the right moment. She moved to embrace Catherine gently. He chose well, you know. You're exactly what this family needs. Catherine felt tears welling up again. Margaret, I had no idea you were involved in this. How long have you known? Approached me about 18 months before he passed away. He had been watching the family dynamics very carefully. He was growing increasingly concerned about the future direction of the monarchy. He felt that Charles, while well-meaning, was to set in traditional ways, and that Camilla, despite her efforts, simply couldn't connect with the younger generation the way you do. Sir Edward spread several photographs across the table. They showed Catherine at various public events over the past few years, comforting families affected by tragedy, visiting hospitals, engaging with young people, representing the royal family with grace and authenticity. Prince Philip kept detailed records of public reaction to different royal family members, Sir Edward explained. The data consistently showed that you had the highest approval ratings, not just among young people, but across all demographics. He believed this was crucial for the monarchy's survival. Margaret sat down across from Catherine. Philip was also very concerned about the scandals that had plagued the family in recent years. He felt that you and William represented a fresh start, a chance to restore the public's faith in the royal institution. But he realized that for this to happen, you would need more authority than a traditional princess would normally have. Catherine stood up and walked to a portrait of Queen Elizabeth that hung on the library wall. What would the late queen have thought about all this? Did Prince Philip discuss these plans with her? The room fell silent for a moment before Margaret answered carefully. Catherine Elizabeth was aware of Philip's concerns, but she was also very traditional in her thinking. She believed in maintaining established protocols. Philip, however, felt that times had changed too dramatically for old approaches to work. He made these decisions on his own, though I believe deep down, Elizabeth would have approved. Sir Edward cleared his throat. Your Royal Highness, there's a practical matter we need to address. Prince Philip's instructions specify that King Charles must be informed of these arrangements within the next week. The question is how you want to handle that conversation. Catherine turned back to the group, her expression showing the weight of her new reality. How do you think Charles will react to learning that his father has essentially bypassed Camilla in favor of me? Mrs. Morrison looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, if we're being honest, it's likely to cause significant family tension. King Charles has always been very protective of Queen Camilla, especially given the challenges she faced in gaining public acceptance. Margaret leaned forward. But Catherine, you must remember that Charles also loves you dearly.
As often
Expressed how proud he is of the way you've embraced your royal duties. Yeah. Philip was counting on Charles's love for you and his desire for the monarchy to succeed, to help him accept these changes. Sir Edward pulled out a sealed letter. Prince. Philip also wrote a letter specifically for King Charles, explaining his reasoning. He hoped that by presenting his son with a complete plan rather than just complaints about the current situation, Charles would be more likely to cooperate. Catherine picked up the letter addressed to Charles, feeling its weight in her hands. She realized that once she delivered this letter, there would be no going back. The royal family would be forever changed, and she would be at the center of that transformation. What about William? Catherine asked suddenly. How much does he know about any of this? Margaret smiled. Philip specifically requested that William be kept unaware until after you had accepted your new role. He felt it was important that this decision be entirely yours, without any pressure from your husband. However, he did leave instructions for how William should be brought into the plan once you're ready. Catherine walked back to the window. Looking out at the grounds where Prince Philip had spent so many years walking and thinking, she could almost see him out there, planning and preparing for this moment when he would no longer be able to guide the family himself. There's something I need to understand, Catherine said, turning back to the group. What exactly does Prince Philip expect me to do with this authority? How am I supposed to manage the transition of taking on Camilla's traditional duties without destroying the family? Sir Edward opened the final folder in his briefcase. Prince Philip was very detailed in his instructions. Your Royal Highness. He created a timeline for gradually shifting responsibilities, beginning with certain ceremonial duties and charitable patronages. The idea is to make the transition so gradual and natural that by the time it's complete, it will seem like it was always meant to be this way. 3 days later, Catherine found herself sitting in the drawing room at Clarence's house, waiting for King Charles to arrive. She had spent those 3 days reading through every document Prince Philip had left, trying to understand the full scope of what she had inherited. The ring sat heavily on her finger, a constant reminder of the responsibility she now carried. William had been surprisingly supportive. When she finally told him everything, after the initial shock, he had held her hand and said, "Grandfather always was the wisest of us all. If he believed in you this much, then I believe in his judgment." But Catherine knew that Charles's reaction would be far more complicated. The door opened, and King Charles entered, looking tired and somewhat confused. He had been told only that Catherine needed to discuss something urgent and private with him. Behind him came Queen Camilla, which Catherine hadn't expected. "Catherine, my dear," Charles said, settling into his favorite chair. He sounded quite serious on the phone. "I hope everything is all right with the children." Catherine's heart pounded as she realized she would have to explain Prince Philip's plans in front of Camilla. She had hoped to speak with Charles alone first, but perhaps this was better getting everything out in the open at once. "Charles, Camilla," Catherine began, her voice steadier than she felt. "Oh no. What I'm about to tell you will come as a shock. I've recently learned about some arrangements that Prince Philip made before his death, arrangements that affect all of us." Camilla shifted uncomfortably in her chair, perhaps sensing that whatever was coming would concern her directly. Leaned forward, his expression growing more serious. Catherine took a deep breath and pulled out Prince Philip's letter to Charles. "Your father left this for you, Charles. He asked that I'd be present when you read it so that we could discuss the implications together." Charles took the letter with trembling hands. As he read, Catherine watched his face go through a range of emotions: surprise, confusion, concern, and finally, a kind of resigned understanding. Camilla watched her husband's face, growing more anxious with each passing moment. When Charles finished reading, he set the letter down carefully and looked directly at Catherine. "My father certainly never did anything halfway, did he?" he said with a mixture of admiration and exasperation. "Charles," Camilla said urgently, "what does the letter say? What arrangements?" Charles turned to his wife, his expression gentle but serious. "My dear, my father has made some decisions about the future structure of our family's roles. He has given Catherine certain authorities and responsibilities that traditionally would belong to you as queen consort." The color drained from Camilla's face. "I don't understand. What kind of responsibilities?" Catherine leaned forward, speaking directly to Camilla. "I want you to know that I never asked for this, and I certainly never expected it. Prince Philip made these decisions entirely on his own, based on what he believed was best for the future of the monarchy." Camilla's voice was barely a whisper. "Are you saying that Philip has somehow removed me from my position as queen consort?" "Exactly," Charles answered, taking his wife's hand. "You remain queen consort in title, but Catherine has been given authority over many of the traditional duties and ceremonial responsibilities that would normally be yours." The silence in the room was deafening. Catherine could hear her own heartbeat. As she waited for Camilla's reaction, finally, the queen consort spoke, her voice shaking with emotion. "I have spent years trying to prove myself worthy of this family. I've endured public criticism, media attacks, and constant comparison to Diana. I have worked tirelessly to support Charles and to serve this country. And now I'm being told that it was all for nothing?" Catherine felt her heart breaking for Camilla. Despite what Prince Philip had written about her limitations, Catherine had always respected the older woman's dedication and resilience. "Camilla," Catherine said softly, "this isn't about your worth or your efforts. Prince Philip recognized everything you've done for Charles and for the family. This is about his vision for the future, about what he believed the monarchy needs. To survive in the modern world," Charles stood up and began pacing, a habit he had developed over the years when dealing with difficult situations. "Catherine, I need you to help me understand something. Are you prepared to take on these responsibilities? Do you want this level of authority and public scrutiny?" Catherine had been asking herself the same question for 3 days. "Charles, I'm terrified by the prospect. But Prince Philip believed in me, and he spent months planning this transition. I feel I owe it to him, and to the family, to at least try to fulfill his vision." Camilla suddenly stood up, her composure cracking. "And what about what I want? What about the life I've built with Charles? Am I supposed to just step aside and watch someone else take over everything I've worked for?" Pain in Camilla's voice was unmistakable, and Catherine felt tears starting to form in her eyes. This was exactly what she had been afraid of, that accepting Prince Philip's legacy would mean hurting people she cared about. Charles moved to his wife's side, putting his arm around her shoulders. "My darling, no one is asking you to step aside completely. You will always be my wife and my partner. But we have to consider what's best for the institution we serve." Camilla looked at Charles with disbelief. "Are you actually considering going along with this plan your father has? Essentially declared that I'm not suitable to be a proper queen consort, and you're just going to accept that?" Charles was quiet for a long moment before answering. "Camilla, my father was many things, but he was never wrong about what was best for the monarchy. If he believed that Catherine should take on a larger role, then perhaps we should consider why he felt that way." Catherine watched this painful exchange between husband and wife, feeling like an intruder in their private moment. But she also realized that this conversation was necessary, that Prince Philip's plan could only work if everyone involved understood their new roles and accepted them, even if reluctantly. "Perhaps we could find a way to make this transition that honors everyone's contributions," Catherine suggested quietly. "Prince Philip left detailed instructions, but they're not set in stone. Maybe we can adapt them to work better for all of us." Camilla turned to look at Catherine, and for a moment, The two women simply stared at each other across the room that had become the center of a royal revolution. 2 weeks had passed since the difficult conversation at Clarence's house, and the royal family was still adjusting to the new reality. Catherine had spent most of that time meeting with the various people Prince Philip had secretly involved in his plans, learning about the full scope of her new responsibilities. Today, she was meeting with Lord Pemberton, the longtime royal historian who had helped Prince Philip research the legal precedents for his unprecedented arrangements. They sat in the morning room at Kensington Palace, with documents and historical texts spread across the table between them. "Your Royal Highness," Lord Pemberton was saying, "what Prince Philip accomplished was truly remarkable from a legal standpoint. He found precedents dating back to the 18th century that allowed him to transfer certain royal prerogatives in ways that most people didn't even know were possible." Catherine studied a particularly old document that outlined similar arrangements made during the reign of George III. "But surely there will be challenges to his authority to make these changes. That's where Prince Philip was particularly clever, ma'am. He spent 2 years having constitutional lawyers review every aspect of his plan. Everything he did was completely within his rights as Duke of Edinburgh and as the longest-serving consort in British history. The Crown's legal team has already confirmed that his arrangements are legally binding." The door opened, and Margaret Thornberry entered with a stack of newspapers. Her expression was serious as she set them down on the table. "Catherine, we have a situation," Margaret said. "One has leaked information about Prince Philip's will to the press. It's not the full details, but enough to create speculation." Catherine felt her stomach drop as she looked at the headlines. "Secret royal inheritance revealed and Prince Philip's final surprise" were splashed across several tabloids. "How much do they know?" Catherine asked, scanning the articles quickly. "They know that Prince Philip left you something significant, and they're speculating about what it might mean for Queen Camilla's role. Fortunately, they don't have the specific details about the transfer of authority, but it's only a matter of time before they figure it out." Lord Pemberton looked concerned. "Your Royal Highness, this changes our timeline significantly. Prince Philip's plan assumed we would have more time to implement the changes gradually, before public attention focused on them." Catherine's phone buzzed with a text message from William. "The media circus has started. Come home when you can. We need to talk about how to handle this." As if the situation couldn't get more complicated, Catherine's private secretary knocked and entered the room. "Ma'am, Queen Camilla is on the phone. She says she needs to speak with you urgently." Catherine excused herself and took the call in the adjacent study. Camilla's voice was tense and strained. "Catherine, I assume you've seen the newspapers?" "Charles, and I have been fielding calls from journalists all morning. It's asking about Prince Philip's will and what it means for my position. I need to know what you're planning to tell them." Catherine could hear the barely controlled emotion in Camilla's voice. "I haven't decided how to respond yet. I was hoping we could coordinate our approach so that we present a united front." United front?" Camilla's voice rose slightly. "Catherine, the press is speculating that I'm being pushed aside in favor of you. How exactly do we present a united front around that?" Catherine closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on her. "Camilla, I know this is incredibly difficult, but perhaps this is an opportunity for us to be honest with the public about how the royal family is evolving." There was a long pause before Camilla responded. "I've been thinking about our conversation at Clarence's house and about everything Philip wrote in his letters. As much as it pains me to admit it, I can see why he made the choices he did." Catherine was surprised by this admission. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I've always known that the public sees you differently than they see me. You represent hope and renewal, while I represent complications from the past." Philip was right about that, even if it hurts to acknowledge. Catherine felt tears forming in her eyes. "Camilla, that doesn't mean you don't have value, or that your contributions don't matter." "Perhaps not," Camilla replied, her voice growing steadier. "But it does mean that Philip's plan might actually be what's best for the monarchy, even if it's not what's best for me personally." That evening, Catherine sat with William in their private sitting room at Kensington Palace. The children were asleep upstairs, and for the first time in weeks, they had a quiet moment to really talk about everything that was happening: the media, Attention is only going to get more intense, William said, holding Catherine's hand. Are you prepared for that level of scrutiny? Catherine looked down at Prince Philip's ring, which she had been wearing constantly since receiving it. I'm not sure anyone can be prepared for that. But I keep thinking about what Prince Philip wrote in his letter about duty and service. He believed that I could handle this responsibility, and I feel like I owe it to him to try. William squeezed her hand. Grandfather was always the most forward-thinking member of our family. If he believed that this was necessary for the monarchy's future, then I trust his judgment. But what about Camilla? Catherine asked. I can't stop thinking about how much pain this is causing her. She didn't choose to be in this situation, any more than I did. Camilla is stronger than people give her credit for, William replied. And she loves this family enough to do what's right for it, even if it's difficult for her personally. As they sat together in the quiet of their home, Catherine realized that Prince Philip's plan was no longer just a private family matter. The public attention meant that decisions would have to be made quickly, and once those decisions were made, there would be no going back. The next morning brought news that would force everyone's hand. The Archbishop of Canterbury, who had been quietly supportive of Prince Philip's plan, has been approached by journalists asking about his knowledge of the Duke's final arrangements. Rather than lie or deflect, he had decided to make a public statement. Catherine watched the news conference from her office at Kensington Palace. Knowing that whatever the Archbishop said would determine how the royal family moved forward with Prince Philip's revolutionary vision for their future. The Archbishop of Canterbury stood at the podium in Lambeth Palace, his expression grave but determined. Camera flashes illuminated his face as he prepared to make a statement that would change the British monarchy forever. My friends, he began, his voice carrying the authority that came with his position as the spiritual leader of the Church of England. I stand before you today to confirm certain arrangements made by His Royal Highness Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, in the months before his passing. Catherine watched from Kensington Palace, her heart pounding as she realized there was no turning back now. William sat beside her, holding her hand tightly as they listened to the Archbishop's carefully chosen words. Prince Philip, in his wisdom, and his deep love for this nation and its monarchy, made provisions to ensure that the royal family would be equipped to serve the British people effectively in the decades to come. These provisions involved the transfer of certain ceremonial and charitable responsibilities to Her Royal Highness the Princess of Wales. The Archbishop paused, letting the significance of his words sink in before continuing. I want to be clear that these arrangements in no way diminish the important role of Her Majesty Queen Camilla as the beloved wife and consort of His Majesty King Charles. Rather, they represent Prince Philip's vision of a monarchy that can adapt and evolve while maintaining its essential dignity and purpose. At Clarence House, Charles and Camilla watched the same broadcast. Charles had his arm around his wife, who sat quietly with tears in her eyes. She had known this moment would come, but hearing it announced publicly made the reality inescapable. The Prince of Wales has shown herself to be a person of exceptional character, compassion, and dedication to service, the Archbishop continued. Prince Philip believed, and I agree, that she possesses the qualities necessary to help guide the monarchy through the challenges and opportunities of the modern era. The questions from reporters came immediately and relentlessly. What exactly does this mean for Queen Camilla's role? Is this unprecedented in royal history? How does the royal family feel about these changes? The Archbishop handled each question with diplomatic skill, explaining that the arrangements were completely legal and had been carefully planned to ensure a smooth transition. He emphasized that both Catherine and Camilla had been consulted, and that the family was united in supporting Prince Philip's final wishes. But Catherine knew that the real test would come in the days and weeks ahead, as the royal family had to demonstrate publicly that they could make this unprecedented arrangement work. 3 days later, Catherine found herself standing in the same library at Windsor Castle where she had first learned about Prince Philip's will. But this time, she wasn't alone with lawyers and advisors. The entire senior royal family was gathered for what Charles had called a family meeting to plan our way forward. King Charles stood at the head of the long table, looking older than his years but determined to lead his family through this transition. Queen Camilla sat to his right, her composure restored, but her eyes still showing the pain of the past few weeks. William sat beside Catherine, offering silent support as she prepared to address the family. "I want everyone to know," Catherine began, her voice clear and steady, "that I never sought the responsibilities that Prince Philip has given me. But I have come to understand that this isn't about what any of us wants. It's about what the monarchy needs to survive and serve the British people effectively." Princess Anne, who had remained silent throughout the recent upheaval, finally spoke. "Father was always pragmatic above all else. If he believed these changes were necessary, then we must find a way to make them work." Charles nodded in agreement. "The question now is how we implement these changes in a way that strengthens rather than divides our family." Camilla, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. "I've had time to think about everything that's happened, and I've realized something important. Philip wasn't trying to diminish me or punish me. He was trying to ensure that this institution survives long. After all of us are gone." Catherine felt a wave of relief wash over her as she heard the acceptance in Camilla's voice. "Thank you for understanding. I hope we can work together to make this transition as smooth as possible." "More than that," Camilla continued, surprising. "Everyone in the room, I want to help you succeed in these new responsibilities. I've learned valuable lessons during my time as Queen Consort, and I think those lessons could be useful to you." William looked amazed at this generous offer. "That's incredibly gracious of you, Camilla." Charles reached over and took his wife's hand. "This is why I fell in love with you," he said quietly. "Your ability to put the greater good above your own feelings." Over the following months, the royal family began implementing Prince Philip's vision with remarkable success. Catherine gradually took on more prominent ceremonial roles, while Camilla focused on her passion projects and charitable work. Public, initially confused by the unusual arrangement, began to see the wisdom in Prince Philip's plan. Catherine's first major solo engagement as the senior royal was opening a new children's hospital in Manchester. As she walked through the wards, talking with young patients and their families, she could feel Prince Philip's presence guiding her. The ring he had left her caught the light as she held a little girl's hand, and she remembered his words about service being the true purpose of royalty. The media coverage was overwhelmingly positive. Headlines read, "Catherine rises to the occasion, and a new era of royal service begins." Even the most skeptical commentators admitted that Prince Philip's judgment appeared to be sound. 6 months after the Archbishop's announcement, Catherine stood on the balcony of Buckingham Palace during the annual Trooping the Colour ceremony. She wore a stunning blue dress and a hat that perfectly complemented Prince Philip's ring, which had become her signature piece of jewelry. Below, thousands of people cheered and waved flags. Beside her, Camilla smiled genuinely as she watched. Catherine waved to the crowd. "You've exceeded even Philip's expectations," she said quietly. "You would be very proud." Charles, standing with his family on the balcony, looked out at the sea of supportive faces and realized that his father had been right once again. The monarchy was stronger now, more connected to the people it served, and better prepared for the future. As the red arrows flew overhead in their traditional display, Catherine thought about the letter Prince Philip had written to her, now safely stored in the royal archives. In it, he had expressed his hope that she would help the monarchy evolve while maintaining its essential dignity and purpose. Looking out at the crowd below, Catherine knew that Prince Philip's faith in her had been justified. The secret will, that had once seemed like an impossible burden, had become the foundation for a new chapter in the royal family's story. And while the path had been difficult, with hurt feelings and family tensions along the way, they had emerged stronger and more united than ever. That evening, as Catherine tucked her children into bed, her daughter Charlotte asked about the beautiful ring she always wore. "It belonged to someone very special," Catherine explained. "Someone who believed that serving others was the most important thing anyone could do." As she turned off the lights in the nursery, Catherine touched the ring gently and whispered a quiet thank you to Prince Philip, whose final gift had not just been material wealth or royal authority, but the chance to help secure the monarchy's future for generations to come. His secret will had revealed not just his faith in her, but his profound love for the institution he had served so faithfully for more than 7 decades.